Welcome to Money in a Hot Minute, where I answer your money questions quickly. Hamburger asked, love that username, I was wondering, does it make sense to have a 401k through work and also try to max out yearly contributions on a Roth IRA? Does it make more sense to simply pump the 401k as much as possible rather than trying to also maintain an IRA? This is a great question, and this all depends on your tax rate, your effective tax rate today. So really, I encourage you to look at a tax return, ask your accountant, and find out what your effective tax rate is. If you are in the lower range and your effective tax rate is, somewhere in the 20% or lower, or even 24% or lower, that's a pretty decent tax rate. That's something you might want to consider locking in today by contributing to a Roth. So maybe pull back on those 401k contributions and push that money to a Roth IRA if you're in a really attractive tax rate today. If you're in a higher tax rate, the Roth decision becomes a little more sketchy or more difficult, shall I say, because if you think about it this way, if you end up pulling back on the 401k and putting money in the Roth, but you're in, let's say you're in a really high tax bracket, your money moves through to the highest bracket and your effective tax rate is actually a bit higher, then you have to consider, okay, well, what if in retirement my tax rate is going to be similar or close to this because I'm making less money in retirement, I'm pulling less from my retirement accounts, I'm earning more today. So you want to consider if that's the case, then you may be giving up a tax deduction by not doing your 401k, your traditional 401k, if you're in that higher tax rate today. So you don't want to do that either. I always tell people that tax diversification is key because we don't know where tax rates are going to be later. So I love the idea of pulling back some of the 401k contributions and doing some Roth, especially if your tax rate is very attractive. If your tax rate is very attractive, then that's definitely going to be a strategy that you're going to want to do. And the reason for that is because Roths have a lot of benefits. For one, the Roth income that you pull out in retirement, it doesn't actually count as income. So it's going to not have an effect on bumping you up into different tax brackets that are going to require you to pay more for Medicare premiums. It's called a Medicare surcharge. So you can kind of control your income in retirement a little bit more because that Roth money is not going to be considered taxable income for you. The other benefit is there's no required minimum distributions in a Roth IRA. In a traditional IRA, at 72 years old, you are required to start pulling money from that IRA because Uncle Sam wants his taxes. But with the Roth, they don't have that. There's no required minimum distribution. You can keep that money in, you can keep it invested, you could pass it to your heirs if you want to. So it gives you a bit more flexibility to have a Roth in retirement. Another thing to consider is that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act reduced our tax brackets, but that's supposed to sunset and things are going to go back up. Tax rates are going to go back up unless Congress does something about this. So a lot of people are wanting to lock in today's tax rates and take advantage of Roth IRAs. So to answer your question, I would say look at your tax rate, find out what your effective tax rate is, find out if it's attractive enough to lock in today and to where you want to say, yeah, I'll pay tax on this money today in order to help save money later in retirement and not have to worry about paying taxes on it when I pull it out and all the other benefits that I mentioned. And then if your tax rate ends up being on that higher end, you really want to weigh that decision and decide what are my beliefs on where tax rates are going to land in the future and if that's worth it to you or not, or if you want to just continue to use that 401k to get that tax deduction. All right, I hope that answered your question. If you have a question that you'd like answered, put it in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.